We are live.
Live.
We'll do it live.
Do it live.
Freak thing sucks. If you don't know what that is, it's a hell of a way to start a video. But if you don't know what that is, you've not been on the internet very long.
Yeah, right.
But if you do know what it is, put it in the comments because it's pretty hilarious. Again, if you don't know, someone will probably say what it is in the comments, and you can go look at it on YouTube. But it's quite rewarding.
It is, and we've all been there. We've all had those days. So
technology is great until it's not. So
it's only cool when it does what you want it to do. That is true. That's why God bless those people out there who work with it on a daily basis, and it's just their job to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do.
But even when you've done it a billion times and something goes wrong, and it's like out of this left field, thing, it's like your mouse doesn't work. Put a new battery in. It doesn't have a battery. It has to be plugged up to the computer. That was today's event. So, yeah. Anyway, so we have coffee. In our world here, it's 4 o'clock. It's time for the second afternoon brew. And if you're watching this at 3 o'clock in the morning, probably wouldn't be a good idea to drink coffee. But hey, coffee may not affect you like that. Let us know. Does it? Does coffee keep you up, or does it not matter? We like to have a few cups a day, and we've still
going.
Yeah, we've still got quite a day left. This is a Tuesday that we're recording this, and
4 o'clock in the afternoon, or is it considered evening now?
Yeah, it's getting dark. 5. So
yeah, so sun's about gone. We only got about an hour left, I bet, of sunlight before it's going to be gone. And yeah, we still got some time to put in for the day. So
we do a writing session twice a week. It is something we've been doing now for over a year, but before that, going back to when we first started writing, man, we would set aside 2 to 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Oh, yeah.
Work a full day in the shop. And we still haven't told everybody what we've done. We've told you somewhat, but we're going to eventually show pictures of what we used to do. But every day we'd get through with work, and we'd spend 2 or 3 hours writing, world building.
Yeah.
And that goes back to 2014. So
it was some good times.
Yeah,
and some rough times, but that's just life.
Yeah, I mean, it's some days it's hard, some days it's daunting, some days you just sit there in a blank stare. But what we've learned is that discipline, appointed times, like every Tuesday, Thursday at about 5 o'clock, we're sitting down on a couch and we're nestling into the computer or a notebook or whatever to put down words. And that discipline is something that is good for your throughput, your output of writing. At the same time, it's something you look forward to. And there's days, there's nights that nothing comes out. You struggle, but you are doing it in your appointed time. And so that allows you to kind of break through and do something, even if it's just 300 words, you get something down. And it's a good discipline. And again, there's a lot of times you just don't want to write. But when you're disciplined like that, you tend to break through that quickly and you get something down. And after about a year, you look up and you've got 100,000 words.
Yeah.
Or less. Sometimes it takes 6 months to get 100,000 words.
Oh, yeah. Things can get in the way, or you just didn't have that successful of a writing session where it took you hours to get even a page of anything written down. It's like it could be a number of things. And then you'll have those days that are the exact opposite, that you had a writing session and you breeze through 3 pages. 3 8.5 by 11, not that's little ones, but it's all about the showing up. It's the consistency. It's the discipline. It's about that more than anything, because the motivation is just, throw a rock at any social media channel and you can find some faceless, nameless, or sometimes, they're the exact opposite, but they talk about discipline, consistency over motivation, because motivation is just this constant roller coaster, is this fluctuating thing that is not going to stay around forever. And some days you don't have motivation to be a part of any of it. So that's where it does come in for sure.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of, well, we're almost 2/3 of the way through November, which is, I think, in the writing world, that's NaNoWriMo or something like that. I'll have to look that up and clarify. But this is a month for writers that you set goals and you try to achieve those goals. It's always every November, and it's pretty cool. We haven't done that. I love the idea, and certainly setting goals that maybe are over and above and beyond your normal output are great. Some people during this month try to get 50,000 words, 100,000 words. They try to get a first chapter started and done. They try to complete a whole book, a whole novel in a month. I mean, it's across the board. So if you're in the middle of that, then hopefully these words will resonate with you, and you will, like us, try to do some discipline and get some set aside time and work through. I don't believe in writer's block. I just think you just have to plow through. Sanderson is one of the best at this, inspired me a lot, and I'm a lot like he is. I think I'm older than him, but I'm a lot like what he does, which is he writes late. So he'll start writing at 9:30, 10 o'clock, I think, when he gets his kids to bed. And they're getting older now, so maybe it's not even that. But he writes till 2 a.m, generally, I think, and then he plays video games after that till like 4. And then he wakes up at noon. Does that sound like anybody you know? I don't play video games, but it's his way. It's the way he does it, and he does it every day. And to put out the words that he does, you have to do that kind of discipline.
Yeah,
I think Stephen King get 2,000 words a day.
Yeah,
and good God, the amount of, books he's written.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some sort of discipline. So that's our Tuesdays and Thursdays. Today is one of those days, and we're doing this right before we get into our writing session. But what we're sharing with you today is part 3 of our map-making, world-building system. And tell them what we're going to be doing today.
Well, we already covered a few things about the land, mountains, and whatnot. So today, Chad is going to be covering different rivers and how to implement those into your map. And then we're also going to be moving on to kind of naming conventions, but more or less how to make your map look good with the names that go across them there. I actually just shot my footage pretty early this morning and put it all in there, but those are the 2 things we're going to be going over to basically help your map stand out, because you still got to implement the rivers. You got to continue to flesh it out, which you guys will continue to do in your own world. But everything like font, typeface, how the words are splayed across your map, what they look like, it's going to be
so how the words, the font, the names sit on the page.
Yeah.
It's pretty important, and it's something that's kind of probably burned into everyone's mind who's read fantasy or who reads fantasy, is Tolkien. If you don't have these books by David Day, you're missing out. This is the Dictionary of Tolkien. I think there's like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
They can come in a box set, or you can buy them individually. I think I've got all of them but one. But yeah, this is certainly an inspiration, and Cody's going to show you that today on how we do it, and pretty cool technique, as well as fleshing out your map to where it starts to look like a fantasy map.
Right.
So
without further ado, before we jump into this, you guys please like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and let's jump into this thing.
Let's do it. right, we are back in the saddle. Got our map going here and a cup of coffee. Always good on days for creation, which is pretty much every day as Cody spills his nuts. I'm sure you heard that, but anyway, we're going to press on. So yeah, last time you saw us, we were here putting on some mountains and some trees and some of that good stuff. And as you can see, it is exactly as we left it, except for a couple of changes that Cody made that he will maybe go over and show you the difference in some things he did. But today we're going to talk about rivers, and I might place in a few more mountains and trees just for context. And then we will segue from that into region names and city names and how we place those on the map to give it a, fantasy map feel. Mostly borrowing from, Tolkien's original maps, how great that font looked and how great those names looked across those maps. But today I'm going to do something probably very unconventional. I don't even know if Cody and I agree on this to completely together or individually, but I really like the way this works for creating rivers, especially with how we've created our landmass and how we have embossed it. But as you can see, I'm on this layer here, which is the main landmass layer that we created. And I have got the eraser tool. And I'm going to let Cody share with you how, yes, this is a destructive tool, but it can be reconstructed very simply, especially with the mediums we are using here. And we like it just because of the freedom it gives us to create on the fly, and it is easy to change, fix if you don't like what you did. And it also gives a really cool, realistic look on the effects, on how you cut this river in and maintain the effects that you've already put on your map. So, as with our world, rivers, don't always start, but generally start from a larger body of water or a mountain range where the snow melts and it goes down the mountain, turns into a river, and those cut across the land, and that is the way we know them to be. So we're going to start with that concept in mind, and we're just going to I'm going to start here at the end of the river with my tool a little bit larger than I will have it at its start. So, okay. All right, now we can cut this river in. And you can see that's a pretty big cut. And we'll probably go back and affect these, change these effects accordingly to what we want. We started with this, but as you go along, you see changes you want to make and effects that are being created that you don't necessarily love. Like maybe the highlights on this are a little bit bold, but we can go back and make this eraser tool larger, and just using my bracket keys here, you can cut out some bigger sections of this, especially towards the delta where it comes into this body of water, this ocean. You can do, some big oxbows in it if you want. Where rivers cut around corners like that, and over time they get wider because of flow and amount of water that's coming through, and they leave islands. Sometimes they end up cutting through right here. They just cut the oxbow completely off, and it leaves big lakes. But I'm going to make my eraser tool just a little smaller now, and we're going to just wind this river all the way up. And you see I'm kind of keeping it directionally straight, where it's just coming out of these mountains. I'm going to bring it all the way up to here. And that's a simple take on a river, right? It's not, that difficult. And again, this is easy to change. Of course, while you're doing it, you could just Control Z, that. But we'll go back and show you later if we wanted to fix something or take it away, how you can undo this destructive technique. But if you back out of that, it looks really good. I mean, that is a river, and it's not hard to see what's going on. But let's say we wanted to, feed this lake, this landlocked lake, from, let's say, a couple more rivers coming out of this mountain range. The water's got to come from somewhere, right? So if you cut in some more rivers. Now again, when you do that river, you just land kind of blocked passage around the tip of this lake, which is fine. You can put a bridge across, or you'll have to go around, or you'll have to get on a ferry and cross over. But those are things that you can do now that will affect the way your story flows, or the way your passages, journeys, expeditions flow. That is just something to bear in mind. So let's do another river. And you can get as detailed on here as you want. I mean, every little river can come from a mountain, or it can just be spring fed, however you want to say. And then the way I determine, let's say it's spring fed, I just keep getting my eraser smaller and smaller. And you can see now that indicates that it's, basically coming from the ground. And you get this close in, you're going to pixelate. It's going to be, we're in at 500%. And I'm only showing you that to give you a close-up of what I'm actually doing. So, I like the way that looks. It's common sense, makes total sense to me. Let's get back on. Okay, we're still on the eraser tool. And there it is. So another thing that you might run into is people that will say, oh, rivers can't flow to the north. They can't, they only, like if this direction is north, which is commonly up on your page, on your map, then, rivers must, they must flow towards the equator or whatever. And you know what? That's true, but this is a fantasy world, and things can be upside down a little bit. So even though this is a landlocked lake, kind of like what we said, the Caspian Sea or something like that, you can make a river flow out of it, much like the Great Lakes, right? There's rivers flowing out of those lakes into the Atlantic. So let's cut in on that. Yeah, so just flows, east to west or west to east here, which is fine, but that allows that lake to have an outflow and an inflow of water. It's still fresh water, just flowing out um, through this river and into the main body of water. But now you can start to see how rivers can break up your map and provide boundaries for regions, which we will get to coming very soon here. I like to see a little river here. And again, I'm doing all of these rivers unlike we did our forests and our mountains on different layers. These are all happening on the actual main landmass because that's the only way it works. And pardon me for my lack of Photoshop, Adobe, lingo. If you want more thorough descriptions, ask Cody. Another river there. Let's see. How else do we want to? Maybe we could do. And again, you're going to come back and add mountain ranges, and we can do a couple if you want, just to show you how I would do that. But really, in my rivers, there's no really formula except for, unless you have damming systems that you're using in your world, where they're damming up rivers like we do in our world, or if you've got some super huge beaver colonies and man-sized beavers that are building dams on rivers, which could be kind of cool. Then you're going to have just basic rivers, which start small, get big, just common sense stuff, right? And flow from mountains or flow from other water bodies. We could do one, just a little tributary here. And again, these are just tributaries. Just little capillary streams, brooks. You could even do this. And it doesn't look like it as much, but we are erasing here. We are taking away landmass here. And I guess you could say you could do a mask on here. If you didn't want to use such a destructive tool as the eraser, you could do a mask in this color to match the leather. But man, it just doesn't have the same. You see how that's cutting in all those effects as I go up. It's bringing all those effects with it, so it really looks like the river's cut out of the land, which is something we like. Again, another tributary here, and I'm borrowing here from lakes that we are used to here in our world, especially in the south where I'm from. Rivers and tributaries are feeding the lakes from all corners. And so that's why I'm doing it this way. And don't mind my dog if you hear the dog in the background. Her name's Cardi, and that should explain it. She can't help it. And I didn't name her. So I think you're getting the idea. A really, really simple take on rivers. Probably would end up doing a lot more down in here to indicate some fertile. But let's go back. Let's add one where we've already added some shading, some green, some lush, fertile ground here. Let's say we wanted to take a river from up in here and cut it through down into this little cove. You can see that it's not going to cut the green away, which we can go back and show you how to do that. pretty big river here. I'm going to cut it down smaller now. Coming from that big tall mountain there. Let's go ahead and do a couple of tributary rivers here. Kind of make a delta land. Kind of what you'd see in a big delta region in our world. So this creates, it's still landmass, but it's more like an island. So now you got 3 little islands there you can mess with. But I don't like the way it looks cutting across that green. So if we go find our Lush Valley layer, we can let's see how we want to do this. Let's go to brush. Let's see, I don't like that. All right, so let's just get back on it. And that's what that's going to do. Didn't mean to do that. Let's go do this. So you see what's happening there. So let's just diffuse that a little bit by just making it smaller and just following up this river. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just stay in the river. We're just cutting that green away just to make that river pop. If you get outside the lines, that's no big deal. But here's what you could also do. Take that and just take the hardness to nothing. And that's going to give you some more control. And this is just really detailed. Like, you don't have to do this. But I just don't want to see that green over the top of my pretty blue leather. You get close, you could even see there's some islands there, but you know, that's really close. Tiny little giblets left over from my just not being able to be close in, or not getting close in, because again, it just pixelates after a while. But you can see what that's doing. It's just taking away that green from our pretty blue ocean and rivers now. I think I'm going to have Cody add back a stroke on this to give it a little bit more definition, especially when it comes to these rivers, so they don't quite disappear like they're kind of doing. But now you get the idea. You get the idea of how I'm doing rivers. Remember, again, when you landlock yourself, when you cut across like I did here, cut across from this lake to this big inlet, you are, causing two things. You're causing a block from your travel, unless you have bridges, that's easy. You can do that. And you're also, on the more positive side, you're actually creating boundaries for regions. So let's go ahead and look at that before I hand this off. So like right here, now you've got a natural border in that river. So you could say that this whole area here, let's say from here, and this whole kind of dragon head looking peninsula, all of this is a region down to this river. Or you could just cut it all the way across. Depends on how you're going to do your regions, how many you're going to have. But, naturally, this whole thing here looks like a region. Maybe this set of islands is its own political region. Same thing as you move. There could be another mountain range. You could extend this mountain range on this side of the lake down to here. Or you could just create let's do this. I'll go ahead and create, let's call it, this new layer, and then we'll just call it central. Central mountains. And we'll get on a brush tip real quick here. Let's get on our brush tool. And this guy. Let's get on our mountains. We can remember where they are. And I'll just do a little bit more to show you what I'm talking about. And this could be a forest, this could be mountains, but we're just using mountains for now since it's easy. Let's go here. Oops. Let's go ahead and do this guy. What are we on here? We are on brown. That's the problem. Let's go black. And again, you can get this detailed as you want with colors and things. Where is our opacity? There we go. And remember, just kind of changing the size as you go. Then you can change the actual tip. Remember, it's really simple to get these mountains going. But let's say we want to just go ahead and bring this range around like this. So let's get bigger down here at the bottom. Some big guys. Big mountains. And again, this is all how you want to do it, but you see the technique I'm using. It just random, and it keeps it more, and you can see, you can hear, sometimes I'll double click just for perspective and give some of the gradients, the natural gradients that you would see. And let's get some of these guys. Yeah, look at that guy right there. Hopefully you're understanding what I'm doing here. And if you don't, go back and look at the part 2 of our series, and this will be certainly make more sense to you. Let's go ahead and turn that guy. Remember, you can use your arrow cursors to turn these mountains. Yeah, I like that. Let's do this. Yeah, there's a big old honker. Big old sucker. Y'all will have to pardon me on my choice usage of slang. Come by it honest. And you can see you can dense these up, and even though gets kind of crazy looking, you can still tell they're mountains, right? Yeah, so I like the way that looks. Let's go ahead and bring this all the way down. Oh, we just blocked getting into this region, river, mountains. Now there's a little pass there that we can leave, which is fine. That's cool. But this makes this a whole region. And it kind of makes this now a whole region. So you see, by just adding geographical content, just adding mountains and rivers and forests and extending waterways, things like that, you're giving true natural boundaries for your landmass. So we've done mountains, we've done greenery, we've done forest to some degree. We'll do some more of that, and as we go, this will flesh this map out as we go. So by the end of it, you're going to see a pretty good representation of what we think is a good looking map. But we've done now rivers, tributaries, small capillary sized creeks, or just smaller rivers. Of course, we've done the ocean. I'm going to, again, as we go, we're just going to continually try to make things look better. And again, our rule is, it's the rule of cool, right? If it looks cool, it is cool. If it looks good, it is good. So now we're going to move on to what is probably one of my favorite things to do, which is creating names, creating a little bit of a stylistic naming convention, and applying these names to your map, and using a good font, using just cool overlay techniques, with shadow, with glows and things like that to really pop off the map, as well as just the way they lay in curvature, or are they straight, in the way you lay the font on. So Cody's going to start that process. And hey, man, thanks for joining us again. If you love these videos, please like and share. And most of all, subscribe. We want to start building our channel and building our subscriber base and offering you guys great content. And then also check out our Patreon page where you can buy some of these things. And we're going to continue to try to add more and more of this for your ability to purchase, or links where you can go purchase some of this like we did.
All right, everyone. Here we are back at the Creation Crucible, and what you just saw Chad do was lay out a few rivers and more mountains and go over that whole process. So I think what it is now time for some of this is, by this point, you guys are going to continue to create your own maps. You're going to continue to go on about your days. You're going to continue to build out what you have, which means that eventually you're going to completely populate this entire map. And then that's going to lead you to eventually needing to have some naming conventions. This is one of the funnest parts, and it's not a terribly difficult part as well, depending on what you want to end up doing with your world. And there's a myriad of ways that you can fulfill this task. So you can go routes of, more of the typical staple, and you'd probably even say generic fantasy, where you just take a couple of words, stick them together, and then you have something brand new that you can work on and work with. And then there's other things you can do, like anyone out there who is bilingual, you can use whatever your mother tongue is, or if it's your second language or whatever, and combine some stuff together. Really, I think what a general rule would be, similar to if it looks good, it is good, would probably be something along the lines of phonetically, how does it sound? Not all of us can be Tolkien, so not all of us can spend most of our days creating an entire language. Technically, creating two languages, if you're thinking of Quenya and Sindarin as two different things, both elven languages, but at that point it just gets insane, really. It really does. So I am not that type of scholar and gentleman. So we use whatever other resources that we have. And it's not really about the naming convention, though, for this part of the video. What we're going to do is just go through different things like how to make it look good on the map, because that's really what this is about, is helping you to create your own fantasy map and make it look like something more than just scribbles on a page. If that's what you're going for, the feel, then by all means, more power to you. But anyone looking to possibly have some different feel and different workings in their world may end up wanting to do something different. So one thing is most definitely a font choice, your typeface, what that looks like. There's a lot of cool and unique fonts out there to help give your map the feel that it needs. What we'll go ahead and do here is we're just going to make a name for them. So I'm going to select my text tool. I'm going to lay this out. It's going to default to lorem ipsum. And so we got some snow on there. We got some things shaken down. So let's just go for some of your typical fantasy. Let's go. Something like, let's go the Frostvale Peaks. That'd probably be good. Now, the thing about it is, here we are. We're kind of just, I don't even know what font we are currently on. So, not a bad font. We do have some different measurements going on for it. However, we want this to look really cool when you're looking at this map, because, we just want it to stand out, want it to be great. There are a ton of different fonts out there that you can use and that you can also just tweak ever so slightly, give it its own unique feel, whatever you're feeling at the time. One that is really big for us that we use quite often for a good look and everything in fantasy, one that we've done is this font right here called Herculanum. This font it looks fantasy. You look at that and it's 100% something I would expect to see in fantasy novels, on a fantasy movie, TV show, anything like that. It looks cool. It stands out. It's not your typical typeface. It's got some unique... it's just got a unique style about it. So, what we're going to do is... This is probably what the name of these mountains are going to be. Now, just plain old Jane, simple colored black font is not going to quite stand out on those. Your probably typical response would be, we'll just make it a different color. I think we're going to do a little bit more than that. Really what you want ultimately is just to find a style that speaks to you, that you like. It's going to be really subjective for the most part. I say that because there are going to be some things that I would... Well, you already know this. You already know that if you're going to go in there and use papyrus, may not be the best choice. But hey, if that's... Depending on what kind of map you're making, if you're going for it, go for it. If you're trying to do something a little more serious and awe-inspiring, you don't really... there are just some fonts you don't really consider. Obviously, wouldn't do wingdings or anything like that. We do have this Celtic plain font. That looks really cool. So we're going to use that one for this example. These fonts are easy to find too, guys. You can literally just Google different fantasy fonts. There are many different kind of font sites out there. If you want to buy some too, you can also buy some really great professional fonts. But if you just want to download a few for these maps for personal use or whatever it might be, that's probably going to be the way to go as well. 150. Yeah, so I do want to bring it up, but 150 is just a little too much, so we're going to go 88. That looks good. So we have our font choice now. Now we can officially go in and let's work on the color here. Something that might stand out amidst these blacks and whites of the mountains, but that could probably, you can either make it stand out immensely or you can complement the color gradient of your map. By the way, I probably should have specified this at the beginning of the video, but one thing I should have mentioned that we did, just for a quick trail off and side note here, is that what we did is I put a levels and a hue saturation adjustment layer onto our land just to make it just a little bit brighter, to change the tone of it just a little bit because it was looking really, really dark. And I did that primarily for two things. A, to help all of our greenery and everything be a little bit more visible, to stand out more. Plus, like with what I did in this mountain range, is I made one more layer. And what that did was just make the mountains just a little bit darker so that whenever you come all the way out here, you can obviously tell it without it. But by making darker shades, like if any of y'all watched our map reviews video, you'll see that probably the best maps that we liked had a lot of gradient and shading, and those things helped with such things like elevation levels of the terrain, and what kind of ecosystem you could possibly find there. So by just adding in just this extra layer that we have right here of this darker brown color, I think I had the opacity pretty low. It was like on 30 or something like that. Just to fill in some of the mountains and give it a much more elevated look for whenever you're way out here. On a glance, you can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's definitely some gradient and elevation terrain happening there. So that's one thing that we did, or I guess a couple things that I did off camera. So that's just a side note. Now back to what we were talking about, is we're going to go in here, Frost Vale Peaks. And what we're going to do is I'm going to change the color of this. And one thing we can do, like I said, you can make this stand out immensely if you wanted. I mean, you could really give it some craziness. However, I'm kind of digging this right here, where we're just playing around with the opacity. You can even change up your blending options. And depending on what colors you got going on, it could work out really well. It could work out not so well. A lot of these are not doing anything that I want them to do. So actually what we're going to do is I'm just going to lower the opacity on these. On this color here, we got a really bright, vibrant red. We could also just not do that as well. We could also go in here, keep the opacity high, and you could just operate this as you would anything else. I kind of like that. It's getting more of a regal looking red. It's not like, the bright crimson reds of the 300 movies when you're looking at their capes. This is starting to get into something a little more regal feeling. It's a lot darker color. It's not so in your face loud with some of that. Yeah, we can get a real good match too if we wanted to with our land. Really make it blend in. could even match the ocean. I think I like how this feels a lot more, so we're going to stick with that color for now. And let me see here. Let's give it a stroke. So maybe go center. Help it stand out some more. Let's go in the same general area that we were in, but maybe we go just a little bit darker. Could go brighter. That'll really stand out. You could just be neon. Could also just go all black. Don't know that I want to do that. And let's go ahead and lower the stroke down. That's looking better. Helps it stand out just a little bit more. Oh, yeah. The opacity turned down or up. That's really starting to stand out here. And what would it look like if we did like an inner shadow here? I think we're going to go ahead and leave the inner shadow off there for now. Just see how this looks. Now we got this sitting over all the fonts here. So that's definitely looking like something. I'm going to transform this. Run along here. And I think I am going to go ahead and increase this font size for us. Let's go 96 here. Just for the fun of it. Let's go outer glow. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, like a fairly wide spread here. Could make it super dark if you wanted to. I don't really want to. I'm just kind of giving it something to help it stand out just a little bit more. I don't necessarily want it to overtake everything, but we could. Bring up. Yeah. So I dig that. That's looking really good. I'm liking this font. It's standing out on the map. Like I said, you could also go more subtle where you want to have things happening here, but maybe you want it to actually blend into your world and you don't want this standing out in that way. That's super simple techniques. That's going to be all up to you guys because, you know, then you might go in here and I would just honestly, what you had seen earlier is I would do something like this and I would get closer at least to the actual tone and hue of my actual map. Therefore, it's not so in your face. It doesn't stand out so much. That's another way to go, and that's the way that we've actually gone. And one of these days when we share our actual map with you, we'll show you kind of the directions that we've gone with that. This, to me, is going to be more about flavoring than anything. So I'm going to say in this world, I want it to stand out just a little bit more right now, and particularly maybe for this demonstration. Now, we've kind of just tilted this, put it in this way, but you can also do some really, really cool stuff with this as well. So another thing that we could do with everything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy layer style. We're going to turn off that layer real fast. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our pen tool here. And I'm actually going to go to the freeform pen tool. And what I think I am going to go ahead and do is we're going to just basically kind of do this line. We're going to come across the mountain over here, get some curvature. We don't need a fill on it. I don't even need a stroke. So then we can go back to our text tool. And as you can see, now we're going to be typing on this. Frostville Peak. We are definitely a little big for this line. So as you can see, the letters kind of change around with what you have going on. This gives it a pretty interesting, unique feel is what it actually does. I kind of like it because it's not just so uniform. It makes it look just a little bit more interesting. You may hate that. That's fine. It is okay to be wrong. Just kidding. But anyways, I'm digging how that looks. It's just another way to add just a little bit more flavor to everything that you have. So as you can see, it made a new shape down here. We won't need the shape after this. You can either delete that or turn it off. Then we're going to go back in here. We're going to paste layer style, and voila. Now you have something that looks a little bit more interesting on your map. This is another technique that you can use and that Chad and I have used a lot, just because getting these more interesting type text that aren't just straight lines makes it look so much more fascinating. It makes it look so much cooler. It gives it a lot more life is what it actually does. So having something like this is 100% a unique way to do things. Because when you're doing these things, you can make a curvature around forests if you wanted to. You could have it follow a coastline if you're looking for it to do that. And it would just look, it'll just kind of fit in with your map. And aesthetically to the eye, that looks more pleasing than just having hard, straight lines and sentences running across everything that you have. Making a curvature along these mountains would be really, really cool. There's just a lot of ways that you guys can play with it. And there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And once your forests and your lands and everything start taking shape, you are more than welcome to go in and start populating all of this to your heart's content. And this is just one of the techniques that we've used in order to, like I said, try to separate ourselves in this map making world. And using this technique about using the pen tool, freeform, going across, and being able to make even certain shapes. If you want it more uniform, because you did see, especially in Peak, the letters kind of shifting around. If you don't like that, you can use this technique with any shape that you want. If you wanted to use an ellipse tool and have everything be much more uniform, and let's say you come over here and you're wanting it to be pretty uniform, but you want it to fit in the crack of this mountain, over here, then you can make your shape, go onto your text tool, and this is one thing that's going to really help out, because now you have your text right over here on this area of the map. And let's call this call this the world spires. And once you've done that, you've kind of created this shape. But as you can see, we made the text out of it now. So you can fit that in there, and it looks a lot more uniform. It kind of actually even goes into that little cove there. Let's paste layer style for what we've had. And of course, you can operate around the different things you're going to use. Now, this time, this shape was set to path. And what that does is it's just going to, this is probably going to be the better way to do it. You can still do it on shape like I showed you with the pen tool, but you can also set the shape to path, and then you won't really have this annoying little shape here that you really don't need after you're done with it. But using any sort of pen tool or shape after you've done that, you can still see the outline here, but this is purely text now, is what it is. And you can operate this however you want. You can rotate it on the actual shape itself, or you can just rotate with your free transform tool. And that's looking cool. And that Y is looking crazy in this font. So the world spires over here, separating this huge part of the continent that Chad created with just a little valley coming through. So either you have to be an insanely talented and prepared mountaineer to make it into this region or province or section of your map, or you're going to have to use a pass or maybe one of the rivers to get into this area. That right there, you start creating some cultural stuff for your world. You can start creating some, well, if that's the only way in and out, you know, is someone going to capitalize on that? Someone going to try to take over that little valley, create a tax on it, create a toll on it? Is it going to be like the Black Gate, the only way or the best ways in and out of Mordor? There's tons of stuff that you can do with this when you populate your map. So these are just a few of the tools that you can use to make this look any way that you want. Like I said, guys, this is your world. You're the one who gets to have fun with it. So you get to pretty much make this anything that you need it to be. That looks really ethereal, really cool. I kind of like that, but it's not going to work out with everything. That may give your map a more earthy tone by doing some of this. So get out there and keep creating, guys. I hope that these videos have been a help. I hope some of this has been a help to you. Remember, using pen tools and the shape tool here in Photoshop, hotkey U for your shapes. You can use standard shape, or if you got a custom shape, something crazy that you want to do, you can do that using the freeform pen or just your standard pen. If you want things to be more uniform, you have a lot more control over it. But these are a couple of tools that you can use to give your text a lot of needed, in my opinion, a lot of needed character and uniqueness. Now your map is starting to feel like a place that somebody went in and started to take time with these different styles, curvatures, things going on with this. Hopefully this has been a help to you guys. Get out there, give your maps, make your maps stand out. Give it this uniqueness, man. Play with the lettering, play with the fonts, play with the layer styles on these to make them either stand out or blend in, whatever you're feeling with this world. We're hoping that you can at least just find this as a little push over the edge into getting out there and creating your own unique world, because sky's the limit, guys.
So that was pretty cool. It was, you know, the map's taking form.
It is. It's starting to actually look like a map.
And I think what is really cool is how you heard us talk about, again, mountains, rivers, you know, different geographical elements help to guide your world building. It helps to make you think and help you. It inspires you to think of what could go wrong if I do this river here, or what could go right if I do this river here? What kind of, how does that affect the story or potential future story? How does it affect political upheavals and uprisings, and the atmosphere of politics and war? How does it affect culture? All of these geographical things have a bearing on your world, and not just your map, but your world and what's going on in your world. Again, compare it to our world. If you think about even World War II and how United Kingdom or Great Britain was off on its own island, that was both good and bad. I mean, if you've retreated all the way back to your island, you're kind of stuck. You're pretty vulnerable, and that's what happened to Great Britain. In that, but at the same time, as far as having a navy and having some sort of protection from just men crossing your border and fighting you, you got to cross water to do that in their case. So it can have bonuses, it can have good sides, bad sides. But when you're world building, you're creating the world. It's you. You have a God perspective, right? So as you're laying things out, you can say, well, let's put that river here, that set of mountains there, and it creates flow of people, of ships, of monsters, whatever you are creating. And it allows you to really put in some cool beginning world building elements that I think are fun. It's exciting. I mean, I enjoy making maps. One of these days we're going to show you guys our map, and we're been building on this thing. The file is 10 years old. I mean, it's old.
It's an old file. Yeah. And I'm surprised that it's lived through so many updates and iterations of Photoshop, and it's been passed around to different clouds and different servers and different hard drives. Like, it's survived a lot. One of the great things about digital is that it can go just about anywhere all the time, and we've never lost it for as long as we've had it, and for as big a file as it is, and it just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, and speaking of digital, if you guys are interested in how we not just work in Photoshop or in the Adobe Suite Creative Cloud, we also use a lot of other technology to do these videos, and we would love to share that with you if you're interested, like what kind of camera we're using. We are, again, you guys are starting in this channel with us. This is brand new. We are missing some elements that hopefully you're going to see us add, and it's going to simply increase the quality of the video. Like, we got to get some lights. If you guys know some great lights for us to use to help light us and light the set, let us know in the comments, and we'll let you know what we're using, because some of this stuff is really, really good. Not the least of which is these mics and the audio software that we use. So again, it takes all things. It takes a pen and paper. It takes, erasers, and then it takes the same tools in Photoshop, and it takes a lot of gear to put something like this out. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to share it with you, and we'll probably do some videos on that behind the scenes stuff eventually too.
And ultimately, though, if you don't have access to any of the things that we use, or for one reason or another you don't have that, or you can't afford that, or you don't want it, or anything, all the above, don't let that stop you from just simply doing it. Just get started and just do it. You don't have to have the latest, greatest mic, especially if you're starting out and you're even thinking about doing something like this, starting your own YouTube channel. Well, don't wait until everything's just perfect and right to go, and you have like, oh, as soon as I can get this $2,000 mic, then I'll be ready to start. No, you will not.
You'll never get there.
You'll never get there.
It's like saying I'm going to have kids. I'm going to wait till I can afford to have children. You cannot wait till then, because you'll always reason out, I can't afford it, because diapers are expensive, baby food's expensive, clothes are expensive, and not to mention just the strain on your time. It's expensive. Don't wait. If you want to have children, just do it. and it's not that hard to do. So ultimately, Cody's right. Don't wait. Don't wait for Photoshop. Use GIMP or other software.
Yep.
Use your phone to do this. The iPhone is great, has great cameras. You can use the phone's mic to do this. You don't have to have lavaliers or these level of mics. Just do it. We did it. And you know what? It's a baby channel, and we're starting, and we don't care. We're just going to put out the information, and hopefully you guys will consume it. And we're thankful for those of you who are watching and who have liked the the channel, subscribed, who have commented, and who are kind of getting on this journey with us.
Yeah, because it's a journey for us too, and you're seeing all the stuff in real time. You're seeing us work through long hours. You're seeing us work through times where we mess up, and we talked about that in the last video or video before that. Where it's like you're gonna watch some mess ups too, or in real time, we'll leave some of those in. I went through quite a few whenever I recorded this session for this video today. It was not the premiere performance, but that's all right, because in the end, as long as you guys got something out of it, and that we all noticed and found the ways to improve what we're doing and to keep creating, that's ultimately what matters. And as we talked about in the beginning of this video, I believe it's the discipline and the consistency is what's going to matter in the end.
Yeah, so stick it out, start it out, do the things you got to do to just get going. And trust me, you're going to love it. You're going to stumble into ideas that you never would have thought of. You're going to be inspired by what you're doing by simply recording a video. So thank you for watching part 3. Hopefully you've gone back and watched part 1 and part 2 of our map making and world building series. This is the first series of many, we hope. And again, we're learning with you, together with you, what you want to see. If you don't want to see some things, tell us. If you want to see more of certain things, tell us. But we're excited again to be on this journey with you in YouTube. And hopefully we're going to spread it across other channels or other formats. But again, we are doing this for you guys. We've got a lot of years of experience together, and we're just simply sharing it. And hopefully it's going to make your world building and your map making life a little easier. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in part 4.
Yes.
We'll do it live.